Hello. Welcome back to episode 5 of Her Circle podcast. We had a rough time getting here this morning.
We did. That was fun. Added about 20 minutes to
About 20 minutes because of the Ironman happening around Tempe Town Lake. Beautiful day for it.
Yeah, it really is. It's really nice outside. So I was like, could be worse.
Slightly inconvenient for us, but
it's not about us, I guess, always.
we made it, and
I wasn't doing the
okay.
driving. I was in the back seat just living my life, so it didn't really stress me out. But
I was getting a little nervous that we just weren't going to be able to get here.
Oh, I kind of did. But then I was like, there's no way that they can
Block it off that
like
much.
people's businesses.
Right.
Like there's so much around there that like you can't
You have
just
to
be
get
like,
to.
Just kidding, you can't come in. Like, no.
Yeah,
So
you don't get to go there today.
I wasn't too worried, but I also was like, okay, like come on. Like let's get there. But I wasn't driving. I kind of was just chilling in the background.
That's good.
Didn't need to add more stress, you know?
Sure.
to the wonderful driver.
Well, he did great. I
Yeah.
felt like he handled it very well because typically that's something that would send anyone into a little bit of a tizzy.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I was just like, I won't add any more to it. I'm just going to be back here.
Good call.
Are we ever going to get there?
That was going on in my head, but I didn't say it out loud.
No,
I kept it together.
We played it cool. We let him figure it out. He nicely asked the police.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, kind of.
He didn't give him any attitude.
No, he didn't.
Very, very cordial. Yeah,
he just said, hey, in the best way. And he said, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah, I felt like that was very reasonable. I was impressed with the attitude of our driver.
Our wonderful driver. Thank you so much for getting us here safely.
Also, my husband.
For getting us here safely. And then walked in and was like, all right, let's go. Get going.
Yeah.
That stresses me out more.
The get in and get going and let's just go.
Just like feeling like, okay, it's crunch time. Like, let's go.
Yeah, like there's no time to sit and okay.
Like take it in. Like, let's get going. We're still new here.
Yeah, we're still figuring things out.
So I was definitely okay, let's go. It's like, okay.
Sit down, hit record.
He was like, okay, get in your microphones. Are you ready? Yeah. I'm ready now.
Chandler had a quick bathroom break.
Yeah, gotta have that potty break before.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to sit here having to pee, you might see me cry.
Yes.
For not those reasons.
Yeah,
crying
for other
number
reasons.
3 or 4 already, and it would be because I have to pee.
Use the bathroom.
Which would be typical.
Very typical. Well, today we're going to be discussing empowering other women. Mm-hmm. And we're each going to share examples of women in our life who are either friends or family members who are women that we look up to. And we would like to honor them today in this episode. And we're also going to talk about the dangers of comparing yourself.
Yeah.
Whether it's your finances, your house, how your body looks, all of those things. Yeah, life in general. So that's where we're going to start. And I can say for Chandler, she is a very awesome example of empowering herself, and her ability to do that also uplifts everyone else around her. I've heard countless stories from her of their employees who have needed help, whether it's with cars or a little bit of extra financial cushion, that her and Ryan have time and time again gone out of their way to be that person, letting someone borrow their car, giving people a home to be in when they needed it. And I feel like when you are doing that in your everyday life in small little things, you're uplifting your energy around you. Everyone around you is elevated to a different level because of how you treat those people that you come in contact with every single day. I can say that anyone who works for Chandler and Ryan is so, so lucky to have a part in that relationship with them and working in that company. I know Ryan cares so much about his employees and their kids that they work with daily. And anyone who comes in contact with that is so lucky.
Oh, thank you. It means a lot. Yeah, I think that was a big, big thing for us going into this. I know Ryan really wanted to make sure that he was a boss that he felt like people could come to still. That yes, you have standards and expectations, but like, hey, let's talk it out. Let's work through this. Or being able to feel like, yes, I can go to you as a boss and tell you like A, B, and C, but like you can come to me also kind of thing. So I think that's really important. I hope that we always do that. Yes, we're not going to be perfect, but just giving that environment. And then just in general, like friends, people, like, I mean, we can't do those things without them. At the end of the day, it's like, okay, we own the gym, but we don't own the gym without y'all. So that's a big thing too, that like I always feel like I have to keep in mind, and just in general across the board, just like friendships and things and maybe success. It's like I couldn't do this without my people.
Right. Who's around me that helped me get to this point in my life?
Family and friends. Like I think about the people and the women in my life that kind of helped me become who I was. At the end of the day, I wouldn't have been able to do that without them, and taught me, you know, I come from a family of, I think everyone in my family as women are very, very strong women. I think we're all very similar. I think there's some differences, but for the most part, man, those Kirby DeGrafton genes are strong.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that I always felt that they did, that their people were welcome. At the end of the day, I mean, we can't do those things without your people in your corner.
Absolutely.
So to make sure that they feel at their best, or if they need help, I mean, you got to do what you can. And that's another thing. Everyone's ability to do stuff is going to look different.
Right.
So, I mean, you might have someone that you look at and be like, whoa, that was a huge gesture. And I know we talked about this, I think last time I was down in September, just as a conversation of just having the ability to be able to do things for people is such a blessing. And it's something I think as a person, like I always want to.
Yeah.
I think in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, it'd be so cool to be able to just give people anything and everything. But at the end of the day, obviously, like I don't have the ability to do to the extreme of like what you feel like you would want to.
Yeah.
But I talked about like, just like your heart posture of like where you're at, like why are you doing it and what can you do? And I think if you're doing something for someone, no matter big or small, they know your intentions and what you're doing, and it's going to mean something. Even if it's as simple as like, maybe I can't give you this, or I can't give you this money, or I can't loan you a car, or I can't give you, you know, this huge gesture, but even just like some support of like, hey, I'm here for you. Do you need to talk? How's this going? Or like time, I can give you my time. Like maybe I have a couple hours this weekend. Like, what do you need me to do? Do you need me to come clean your house? Do you need to come help me set up something for your business, or whatever that friend's doing? I think you can do so much that it doesn't necessarily have to be such a big gesture or this huge grand thing. So I think that's kind of takes off the pressure too of someone of like, it doesn't have to be
this huge
so grand.
thing.
Yeah. Like there's so much things you can do for people, and they'll feel it, and just knowing a support, even shooting a text. Sometimes I even think about someone and I'll just shoot them a text of like, hey, I'm proud of you.
And I know for me, like that means so much to me.
And that's like a big thing to be like, if I'm just randomly, because I got a message from one of my friends in college, and this was a couple months back, and she just shot me a message and I just started crying. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's just funny because I feel like sometimes if you really lean into those feelings of like, I don't know why you popped into my head. I think the Lord places those people in your mind for a reason. And that could just be a moment to just be like, hey, like, I don't know what you're going through. She lives in Lubbock, you know? I don't know what you're going through, but I just felt this need to just let you know, like, hey, this came on my heart. Yeah. And that took not that much time.
Yeah.
Didn't cost anything, nothing. And it made me feel so good. And I know, thank you, like, hey, you're in my corner. I know I can go to her for anything kind of thing. So that's a big deal, I think. So just small things like that even can give someone a little bit of like encouragement to
just
go
that
through.
Extra push to know that you're not alone, to know that you're being thought of, and someone is thinking about how you're doing and how you're feeling and what you're going through.
I don't think we have to make it such like a big deal. I'm not saying I'm against the idea of being able to do these grand things if you can. And I think that's amazing. And I love that. But also not everybody can, to make it feel like just because you do something small, it's not small.
Yeah.
It still can have such a big impact. I mean, you think about little things that happen in people's lives who turned into something huge, or like taking a little step of faith. It turned into like maybe a business, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't be afraid of doing those little things that might not mean something or you feel doesn't have that impact, because it really does. I think we live in a society where I think we are so hard on ourselves. And I know we had mentioned the comparison. I think that comparison is, man, it's a slippery slope.
It's truly a thief of, undermines everything that you've done already for yourself. Because I look back at my 22-year-old version of myself getting married, and I think I shared the other day, looking at someone posting on Facebook, and they had their 10-year anniversary, and I was thinking of me and Heston.
Yeah.
What's our life going to look like in 10 years? And, I can honestly say that I'm so proud of where we are. However, I know there's so much more to come.
Yeah.
But I'm also so happy and content with where we're at as a couple, as a family, in our career, or in his career, and my being home with my kids. I'm so happy with where we're at. And I know there's just so much more exciting things to come. But how do you think, because you and I, we've never been, I would say, insecure.
Yeah.
And I use that word not to kind of loosely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we all have things that
there's
sneak
times
in
where
and
it's like,
make you feel a certain way. But I would say that we're typically pretty confident.
Yeah.
We're very confident kids growing up. I felt pretty confident my teenage years. And so where do you think that true confidence came from in your opinion?
So for me, I think a couple of things. I honestly believe that a lot of it came from of who I was around. So I think of my grandmother and my mom. I never saw, I'm not saying that they never had moments of, oh, I don't feel good this way, or I think this or whatever. I never saw it. I think of my grandmother. I'm just going to go down the line because that's where my first main woman in my life. I never saw her crumble.
Right.
I never saw her not on her game in sense of like, I got this, I can do this. Even if she couldn't do it, she could do it.
Right.
We know that woman couldn't
out
cook.
a way. Yeah.
Did she care that she couldn't cook? No. We all ate her food.
We loved her food.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's little things like that it's like, we all know she couldn't cook. She knew she couldn't cook, yet that didn't matter.
Yeah,
she
it
still
didn't
cooked.
stop her.
We still ate the food.
Yeah.
And she did it. And so I just think of things like that where it's just, she was like, I got this. I'm doing it. And I don't care.
Yeah.
You're going to eat the food or not eat the food.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I feel like she was that confident person walking into a room. She knew who she was. Yes, she was a little intense. We have plenty of stories of that. But I felt like she knew who she was and she was okay with that. She loved her people. You didn't mess with her people.
Right.
She made it very clear you didn't mess with her people. So just that confidence of who she was. My mom was the same way. I felt like growing up, I never felt like my mom really cared about what people thought. I still don't think she does. I'm sure there's things, like all of us, but for the most part, my mom always just made me really believe in the power of like, what do you want? What do you feel good about?
Yeah.
Are you happy with that? Great, do it. Do you like what you're wearing? Awesome. Like she never made me feel one way or the other. You kind of could be who you wanted to be. So I think that plays a big role when you have those people in your life that just kind of give off that confidence and very proud of who they are, even if they know they're flawed, because we all are. My sister is the same way. I never really I didn't grow up with my sister, so I wouldn't say I really necessarily saw that until I got older and we started hanging out. I mean, she was, I think I had already developed my own confidence by the time we had a really good relationship, but still having someone that you can kind of feed off of that you have that surrounding you helps you continue that. So I think that plays a big role, but I also think my personality, I do have a little bit, I think growing up, I had a little bit more of I don't know if I want to say innocent, naive mindset of I didn't really think about those things. Like,
yeah, I just felt like we didn't pay attention.
I just didn't even
it didn't
notice.
matter to
like,
us.
I think about talking to kids that are younger than me and things going through, even like my niece, and just hearing things in my head. I'm like, I don't even remember that being a thing. Like, I don't even remember bullies. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't look back at any of those and think like I went through like hormones of like all that stuff. Like, I don't remember any of that. So I don't know if I
felt
was
like we were pretty even keeled,
oblivious, or just I didn't care.
Yeah.
That wasn't on my mind. Honestly, I probably didn't even have much insecurities really until I was like an adult.
Yeah.
Like more recently.
I think being in gymnastics gave us a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
In our abilities, because you know that movie Stick It, she says gymnastics tells you no all day long.
Yeah.
So you're trying to figure out ways to make your body do something that is very challenging.
Yeah.
Whether that's flexibility, learning a new skill. And I think for kids, learning and working towards something and then finally achieving that goal, whether I still remember the first day I got my kip, because that was like a huge skill to finally get. I think, do you do that in level 6? I can't remember when the mount is.
Now.
Oh, that's well, when we were younger. Do you remember?
I feel like it was I feel like it was earlier than that, because 6 you jumped to the high bar.
Oh, that's true.
So I feel like you had to have had your kip 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think you're right. But that
4?
I remember that being the biggest, like one of my biggest achievements in gymnastics was getting my kip. And I still remember being on the bar that was on the tumble track. Do you remember that one? And that's where I like finally got it. And all the optional girls were on the floor.
Yeah.
The tumbling floor, the mesquite floor.
Okay.
And so they're like totally cheering me on, so for me. So I think growing up in the gymnastics world, we were competing only against ourselves. And everyone was encouraging you. Everyone wanted you to get the skill. So I felt like we had such a good environment growing up with girls our age who really were for you. Yeah. There was no, you're taking my spot. I need to be in the front, because gymnastics is a very individualized sport. Yeah. As far as you're the only one up there performing. Yeah, you're all doing the same routines and you're all hoping for a better score. Yeah. But I always felt like I was in competition with myself. Yeah, I wasn't. And I feel like that's translated really nicely into my adult life, because when I exercise, when I'm working on my body and how I want to look. I mean, I've had 3 kids. I feel like I look, you know, decent for having 3 kids. But I also am never truly looking at another woman and going, man, I wish that I had that. I'm looking at those women who are so in shape. And the only thing going through my head is they work so hard.
Well, yeah. I think that's a good point. I didn't really think about that until you said it. But just the fact of like the reason of doing the stuff for yourself shouldn't be for anybody else. It shouldn't be for any person. It shouldn't be for a friend, a spouse, any of that stuff. Because at the end of the day, like that's not going to really, I feel like, fulfill you if that's your purpose. I think you want to do things to better yourself, make yourself healthier. And that all the other things that come with it are just added bonuses, you know? Yeah. And I think, like you said, with the competition of things in gymnastics, you're doing those things out of wanting to better yourself. I want to get this. And I think there's so much like empowerment with that. Something empowering about being like, I can do this. Look what I'm capable of doing.
And look how hard I've worked. And I finally achieved that goal of whether it's a kip or a back walkover or a back tuck. Those are all like big milestones in gymnastics. So I feel like us going through that so young, and we constantly had goals. We pushed, we worked, we achieved the goal. What's next? Yeah. I think for a kid, having that experience is something that is so necessary as you're growing up, as you're continuing, because you have this line that you're trying to reach, right? And so you're putting in the work, you're doing the conditioning, you're doing the practices, you're doing all of the things you're supposed to be doing. Then you finally get that skill and you're like, wow, this feeling is so, you can't duplicate that feeling for a kid. So now that we're discussing that, like I think that that's probably where a lot of our confidence comes from. Yeah. Because we worked, we achieved. We moved on to the next thing. We worked, we achieved. And I think that's translated nicely into our adult lives, as far as you worked, you went through x-ray school. That's hard. You did that for so many years. You always had the goal of the gym in your mind. You worked, you got it.
Yeah.
And you're still continuing to push.
Yeah. And I think too, there's another point of like the idea of like failure too, is I think as a kid, and I don't know if I think this had to do with like the confidence, so it helped, or just like me being so just like whatever. And I feel like sometimes I kind of am. I know failure, because like it's like how many times did we do something that we didn't make
like
it
fall.
and didn't do it and fell, or like got told
constantly,
you know, arguments with our coaches, or like attitude and this and that. I'm like, I was an eye roller, you know. It's like just those little things of like, but at the end of the day, knowing like, okay, today might not have been my best practice. I might have had an attitude, or my coach might have been like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, but that I'm still able to come back the next day. And that's a big thing too, of like, we're going to fail at things.
Right.
We're not going to always push and get it, or it might take longer. But I think that's where like the confidence in yourself really comes in handy, of like, A, that doesn't define me, whether I do it or not. Like, yes, it would be great, but also too, there's more to me than like this certain thing, or this job, or this skill that I got, or whatever. But finding that balance of being able to work through those things, I think is really cool as a kid. And we were so young. And I think it was like such an intense thing to do. And there's so many different sports.
Right.
I mean, I think gymnastics, you know, is the best. I think everyone should do it. But there's just so many different benefits, I think, to that, to being able to learn how to navigate failure and still feel empowered enough to move on, and confident enough to move on.
Well, and even go back to it
keep
and
going,
fail
or
over
like
and over again.
One no might not mean a yes later.
Yes.
Like you could be like, this isn't working right now, but it might. And a lot of good things take time.
Yes.
A lot of things don't just happen overnight. Sometimes you get lucky and they do, but most things don't. Most things take that work. So I think that's a cool thing to have been able to learn at a young age and really carry that into adulthood. I do think I was better at it when I was younger. I think it's harder now.
Yeah.
I think life kind of gets at you, and you kind of really know, like, wow. Almost like
you just have a wider view of everything.
Well, like, because if something fails now,
small.
it might seem a little bit bigger than when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Like, the consequences are a little bit more like, hey, if I start a business and it fails, that's going to be a little bit more dramatic if I didn't make my back hamstring on being at a meet or something.
The stakes are a little higher.
And so I think you start realizing that, and maybe the stress of like world gets in, and you, like you said, comparison, I think, is a thief. It takes things away. I think it takes away the amazing things that
you've already done.
Yeah.
And the path that you're on.
Yeah. Like, I feel like sometimes some people might look at someone and be like, oh, well, they have this and they did it so fast, or they just seem so much better at this, or I like how their hair looks or their outfit. Why can't I wear that? You know, you just continue to look. I don't think our mind was made to have access to this stuff on hand like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a hard thing to juggle. And I feel like being confident and realizing like who you are is so much more important than like what you have, whether it's
and
like
what people perceive about you.
Because at the end of the day, like if someone on the internet's looking at something and whatever they have to say about it's like, you're not in it, you don't know. I think that might be coming from insecurities on their end too. So I know confidence sometimes is easier said than done.
Yeah.
But for me, just like it's finding, I mean, to me, it's just knowing who I am in the Lord. That's at the end of the day who it is. I mean, I think we all have a purpose. We're here on purpose.
Yeah.
The things we're doing are for a reason, even if maybe they feel so minimal. There's a reason for them, and I feel like you can always think about how you can use them, even if it's something little. So I think maybe sometimes that's a good way for me to get out of my head, is if I'm like doing something I don't maybe feel like it's enough, or I'm not doing enough. It's like, okay, but this is the moment I am in. This is the moment I have. How can I use it? What can I take from this?
What can I do with
because
this?
This is where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a good way for me to get out of my head with things like that, if I feel like I'm not doing enough or I'm not being enough. Because I I feel like doing a lot to feeling like I'm not right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that big season transition has been really like,
Yeah. Probably very challenging
like
for you.
What?
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And I think that's been hard for me. So I've been like, okay, like, but what can you do in this moment? Like, even if it seems so little, just do what you can in this
Mm-hmm.
moment, because that is what you have. This is what you're doing. So it's like, you can't change those kind of things. And I'm thankful for what I'm doing and where I'm at. But I think sometimes just getting out of your head and not looking at what so-and-so down the street's doing, but really taking in what you're able to do in that moment. Because comparison, and I think women do it a lot. We get as deep as like how we look and are they a better mother than me, or like their kids didn't do this, or, it's just such a slippery slope, and it's
and there's a lot that you can compare yourself to. Yeah,
and
definitely
I just think
unnecessary.
I think that's the enemy working in people. I think too, like he wants you to feel insuperior and that you're not doing good. Yeah, exactly what he wants. Yeah. And so if you're over here thinking, oh, I'm not doing this good, or I'm not being a good wife or mother or this or that, then it's like, well, yeah, it's exactly where he wants you to be.
Yeah, that's how he wants you to feel, like you're not doing enough, because then you kind of turn inward on yourself.
You start to believe it.
Yeah, you do start to believe it. And that's not a narrative that is helpful to anyone. Yeah. We had like a few weeks ago, for whatever reason, I was feeling so lonely. Yeah. I felt like any friend that I was texting were kind of blowing me off. Yeah. And I was trying to like, hey, let's get together and do this. And then it would be like, oh, we have this going on and this. So I go to the next friend. Hey, we need to get together. I haven't seen you guys in a while. And then it was like nothing. Yeah. And then I text a cousin and like nothing. Yeah. And so I just was upset with where I felt like I was at with my friends. Yeah. And I felt very, very lonely. And then I kept having to go back. It was funny because I kept going, well, at least I have Chandler. She's not here, but I have Chandler.
She'll always answer a text message.
Yeah. And then I'll go, okay, I still have that friend. And one of my very good friends lives in Utah and love her to death. She's amazing. And we talk almost every day, just through text, just little check-ins here and there. Yeah. And I look forward to that so much because it's just this constant like narrative between her and I, or interactions between her and I. And I look forward to that. Unfortunately, she lives in Utah, so I don't get to see her very often. But I just, for whatever reason, all my friends at the same time were just unavailable. And I really turned it on myself. And I was talking to Heston, am I not a good friend? Yeah. Am I not fun to be around? Am I not uplifting these women? So I was kind of doing a mental check-in with myself. And then sure enough, the texts start coming in. Hey, sorry, we're so busy. But I get trapped in this narrative that's not serving me anymore. Yeah. And that's definitely something that I've felt like I've been struggling with in the last probably 3 years. Just feeling like, okay, what's going on, And I know that's not true. And I know that if I talk to any of those women, they would think that that was so silly. Yeah. But that's just what goes on in my head. And then, you start pulling in all these other things. And it's a narrative that I was creating for myself that wasn't working. Yeah. And I had to really work every single day. Like, okay, I need to change my narrative about how I'm feeling like others are viewing me. Yeah. Right. And so that was definitely a challenge for me in the last few weeks. Yeah. And it was tough. Yeah.
And I know a lot of people go through that stage of feeling, I'm sure, like you said, like lonely or nobody can relate or nobody could understand.
It feels very juvenile because I felt like nobody likes me. Yeah. Nobody likes me anymore.
And like you said, it's like, and then if you just like take a step back and you think in your head, like there was just something going on. It was just like one of those things where it was like all at one time.
Yeah, that's why it just was everyone at the same time.
And then you're like, oh my gosh, what the heck? Yeah. But I'm like, I feel like so many people have gone through that, especially if like as adults, because it is so easy, I feel like, to feel lonely and be separated from your people because life gets so busy.
For everyone.
Yeah. I mean, we're at the age now where people have kids, multiple kids, they're married, jobs, business, whatever. So much like growth, I feel like, happening that it's so easy, I think, for people at our age to get just go. And then we do get lonely because it's like, oh wait, I haven't seen my people in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And me and Ryan have talked about that because we have a group of people back at home. Like there were about all of us are there now, and there's about 5 of us couples. And over this past year, it's just been one of those years where it's like every now and then we'll just see one or the other and kind of trickle in. We just haven't had much time to all get together. But I'm like, you're talking kids and lives and jobs and traveling. It's just like, we got people getting their PhDs. Like it's just crazy.
There's
like
a lot
different
going
seasons
on.
of things. One guy's in the medical field and works like 7 days on, 7 days off, and only has every other weekend off, and then his wife works week. So it's like finding times where like all of us can, but when you all are together, it's like, you're trying to be like, oh my gosh, it's such a gift.
Yeah.
You're just like, I need it all, like bring it all in. Yeah. And so I'm like, it is hard because then you go, oh my gosh. And then you go, oh my God, it's been how long?
Yeah.
Because it goes by so fast. You don't think anything of it. And then it's like, dude, I haven't seen y'all in forever.
Yeah.
And you send group messages and you're trying to like, oh, I can't. And so then, it's like always someone because it's so hard. I mean, there's
so hard. Yeah.
So many of us, but
I think as long as you're still putting in the effort and trying to make it work, I think that feels good. There's a couple women in my life that are coming to my mind as we're discussing women who uplift us.
Yeah.
And one person that's coming so strongly to my mind right now is Eileen.
Mm-hmm.
I learned so much from her.
Yeah.
And I was in her home for, oh gosh, I can't even, I don't know how long. And I nannied for her. She has 6 amazing kids, love them all. And I learned so much with her, just watching how she interacted with all of her kids.
Yeah.
How she kind of held down everything at home so beautifully. And she is still so easy to talk to. She's still, I would consider her a very close friend of mine. As I've transitioned from the nanny role to getting married, I had my wedding reception in her yard, which was so kind.
Yeah.
And then she does foot renewing.
Oh, yeah.
So being pregnant with my first, I'm pretty sure I was there very often getting my feet worked on. Then towards the end of the pregnancies, Liv was so late.
Yeah.
Eileen, I think I was there every other day and she was helping me emotionally come through some things. I experienced a miscarriage between Liv and Roan, and that affected me a lot more than I think I realized.
Yeah.
What I went through it felt very traumatic for me, and every woman that's experienced a miscarriage, of course, they're going to experience their own kind of feelings around it. Fortunately, it's just been the one for me, but I was passing out. I passed out twice at home. We called 911. The firemen came, suggested I go to the hospital. Went to the hospital, passed out there, got care there, and we were able to come home. And I think a year or so later, I finally was like, I got to call Eileen. And she just kept coming to my mind, like, she's going to help you through this for whatever reason. And so I went to her house and she was helping me, and we were in her little office and the doors were shut and it was kind of dark in there. And she started working on my feet, and I got so hot, and she was so hot because the energy, kind of flows. And her face was like kind of flustered and her chest was all red, and she just was feeling really hot. And I just started bawling. And I don't do that very often.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
I'm not a very emotional individual. And she was just talking me through it and listening to me, and all of these things were coming out of my mouth that I was really carrying for whatever reason. And it took me a while to want to try to get pregnant again because I was so afraid of that happening again. But Eileen was so solid for me, and she was just there for me. So I look up to her so much.
Yeah.
There have been many things in my life. I think towards the end of my pregnancy with Roan, I was a little bit afraid of delivery and going through that. Not that I've had great experiences, but it's scary. It's a lot to go
Once you
through.
Experience the one, I mean, it totally makes sense to have that. It's just almost sitting there.
Yeah,
kind of in the back of your mind.
And I just kept having that thought, I need to call Eileen. I need to talk through these things with her, because she just, for whatever reason, she's got a great way of hearing what I'm saying to her, and then she kind of adjusts things and is like, well, do you think maybe this is what you're really feeling?
Yeah.
And part of me is afraid to admit, like, yes, that is what I'm feeling. You're right. So she's a very safe person for me to turn to in those times where I'm really dealing with a lot. And I'm forever thankful to her for all of those times she's been there for me. My mom, of course, her everything that she's currently going through and has gone through in her life. I can't think of a more resilient individual.
Yeah.
And I'm honored that I get to help her as much as I do, you know. And she's pretty amazing.
She really is.
And even through all of the garbage that she's getting dealt with currently, she's never negative. She's really not. Every day is a challenge for her sometimes. And she always gets up and she's got a good attitude and she pushes through. You know, so of course, and looking back on growing up with her, I never ever remember her saying anything negative about her looks or about her body, or anything. And if anyone knows what my mom looks like, of course she never said anything negative. She's stunning, you know. But I think that was huge for me growing up, having a mom who never said anything negative. And I try to be really careful with the things that I say about myself in front of Liv, because I would hate some of the things I say to myself in my head.
You would
if
never,
Liv ever said those things to herself,
you'd be like,
I would be,
ma'am?
I would kick her little booty.
And
you
that's
know?
another thing. It's like that saying where they're like, would you ever say that to your friend?
Yeah, never.
And it's funny because I think a lot of times you look at yourself and you're just so much more harsh on yourself, which I get that's just normal. But at the same time, it's like you're still a human, beautifully created. Like, oh my Lord. Like if you could just step back and really just take that in about like every single detail of you as a human, it was perfectly designed. Like not the same as somebody else.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, whoa, like, okay, like, holy crap, that's amazing.
That's huge.
Like, there's a reason you're made the way you were made. So I'm like, I think sometimes, like, when you get in your head of, like, you said, like, the comparison and just looking at people, and it's like, oh my gosh, we're all different. And it's like, I see all types of women and all beautiful. And, like, you think those in your head, oh, dang, look, or look at that outfit. Oh, she rocking it. And but it's like, why can't you look at yourself with that confidence?
Those same
it's
things,
like, what's the difference? Why can't you do that?
Yeah.
So it is, I mean, again, it's one of those things that are, I think, easier said than done, but just like practicing instead of saying those negative things, think of like those positive, or think of the things you can do.
Yeah.
Like, cause I've gone through, like, I know you said like the last 3 years of like, have been struggle for like the loneliness for you and feeling like that. I think for me, my biggest thing has been like my confidence. And it's so weird because I've always been so confident, like probably overly confident sometimes. But I feel like as I get older, it's almost harder. It has been harder, which is so weird to me. I don't know why that change or where that came from, because I don't have anybody different in my life telling me otherwise.
Right.
So it's gotten to where it's like I just like stopped believing in what I was telling myself, I guess. And I know, and I'm sure a lot of like, I don't even want to say just gymnasts, I'm sure just a lot of athletes in general, kind of getting out of that. And like as a woman specifically, your body changes so much.
Yeah.
And putting that pressure on yourself to look a certain way. But at the end of the day, it's like our bodies actually were made to change. Like, I mean, we were made to have like babies and things like that. Like there's ways our bodies are going to change no matter what. But I do think there's like that pressure of like maintaining that look. It's like
that unrealistic
but I'm not
look.
a teenager.
And I'm not in the gym 5 hours a day
and
anymore.
It's like, that's not realistic. And so it's like finding those realities of like, yes, I want to work out. And yes, I want to do that because I want to look like and
you
want to
feel good.
I don't, it's like all those things of like our added bonus. It's like, I want to do this. Like, I want the mindset of like, I want to feel good. And it's like, not because I want to lose 20 pounds. Like, I want to be able to feel good. I want to be able to move. I want to be able to get up and off the floor and not be like, ugh, you know, which that might always happen because my body and knees and stuff. But like, I want to be able to like, you know, go out and play and do stuff, hikes, like be active. Like there's things I want to still be able to do without feeling like I can't.
Right.
And all those other things just kind of go with it. Like, you know, I want to eat good. Yes, I do eat bad. Sometimes I want to enjoy a burger every now and then. But I want to be able to do it with the mindset of like, that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
So like finding that balance of things. And I think sometimes that's hard as women with the comparison game of like how society says we're supposed to look.
Yeah.
You know, how we're supposed to act, talk, walk, you know, all those things. And it's just not realistic. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. We're all different. And there's so much beauty to that.
We're all meant to be different. It'd be pretty boring if we're all the same.
Even besides like of like how you were saying like how much Eileen has helped you with things. I love hearing that as another like friend in person. I think a big person in your life. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
That it's so awesome to me and so almost like refreshing to know that like, oh my gosh, like you have somebody that could do that. Cause it's like, there's some things that I feel like maybe other people are better at or this, or like, I've never experienced a miscarriage. So maybe there's someone has that. It's like, they might feel like they have a better place.
Yeah, just more of an understanding
and helping you through that. It's like, I can do what I can. I'm always going to be there for you. But sometimes it's nice to have like, oh, you've been through that or this. So it's nice to like, as a friend, see that there's somebody else on a different page or in your circle that's like encouraging to you, that's surrounding you also.
When I think that like speaks to the name of this podcast that we decided with Her Circle, because ultimately we get to decide, it's not just one person, but we each get to decide who fits in that circle for us and who's in that circle, what they bring to our lives, how they uplift us, how we uplift them. And because I don't think we've even discussed why we landed on this name.
No, we did not.
Because I think it's very powerful that we ultimately get to choose who brings what to our life and what we're going to allow.
Yeah.
And I kind of think of like a circle of friends. There's different levels of who you're friends with.
Yeah.
How close you let someone in. There may be situations where with a friend where they do something and you kind of take a step back and go, okay, well, I'm not going to like abandon our friendship, but I'm going to remember that that's kind of something you did I don't love.
Yeah.
So there's different degrees of friendship. And I think that that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, and I think at the core of the circle that you and I have chosen, of course, you're like my main circle person. But I think that this podcast and eventually in the future, as we bring people on in our lives that have uplifted us, whether it's men or women who are involved in our circle that have uplifted and truly changed our perspectives on a lot of things and helped us go through challenging times. And I mean, ultimately, I think that's why we landed on this name of Her Circle, because we get to choose who's involved in our circle. Well, and everyone gets to choose who's involved in their circle.
And like you said, like I think I just have like a picture in my head of like, you know, you just have like me, like in you, whatever. And you have like all these different people around you. It's like they're each doing different things. But at the end of the day, you have your people that are going to support you and want to be there for you and help you accomplish A, B, and C. You know, and we all feed into somebody differently because we're all different. And so then like you get to take what you want from that person and what they can give you. And then you can give to your person what you need in each person. So it's like, to me, it's cool to know that like you can empower somebody. Somebody can have so many different people coming into their lives to help, but then you can also individually empower somebody in different ways of what they need because everyone's going through so many things. And so I think it's such a cool thing, like as humans, that we can really like adapt and do and give to different people in different ways based off of what they might need. And sometimes it's a learning process too.
Yeah, on both
because
ends.
I think about as a coach, I mean, a parent's the same way too. I can only speak in that sense. But like you could say something to a kid and then turn around and say the same thing to another kid. They're not going to react the same, or they might not understand it the same way. So then you might have to adapt to what that is. So to me, it's like I could tell you something about what you're going through and you might be like, that's not really what I needed to hear. And I could go do that to someone else and they'd be like, oh, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so much about how you receive and take things. So I think it's super cool to think that, like, as humans, that we have that privilege to really be able to learn and grow on how we can help people and encourage them. And we might not always do it good because, you know, we as people are flawed. So we might be like, that was probably not how I should have reacted. Like, I'm sorry. But just being able to grow and adapt. So I think that's super cool to think about, being able to have people on from our lives that, whether they've been here for so long or new, just what they've done, and like even what people have done in their lives to get them to where they are, and just empowering their journeys, motherhood, fatherhood, what they've been through. Because I mean, it just, to me, hearing somebody's story and testimony is just so cool. And then selfishly, I get to learn too from their stories.
So if you're friends with us or we've come in contact with you,
you want to just chat,
we may be reaching out to you in the next few months.
And just be able to just chit chat and tell us about
and hear what you've
your
been
stories
through
and your journeys, and what helps you feel encouraged and empowered. Like, what do you do for yourself?
Right.
Maybe that you're like, wow, this makes me feel great, or this is what I do, or maybe what little tips and tricks you do to get out of your head, or the comparison game of, and maybe what do you like to do as a person for your friends? So, you know, little give and take there too. So like everybody can take something from any experience and be like, oh, I'm going to try that when I have days of where I feel lonely, or where I feel like I don't like what I'm wearing, or I don't feel like I'm being good enough.
When you're just
wife,
having
or,
an off day.
It just something to uplift, to be like, hey, you're not alone. I'm going through this too, or I went through this and this worked for me, or I'm still going through it. So I think it'll be fun to bring people on and just have conversations, and just really hopefully just have fun, easy conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we got this.
Yes.
Not alone.
Yes.
But
well, we'll end episode 5 here with a heads up to friends and family.
And if you want to, just let us know. We'd love to have you on.
We'd love to have you.
Be fun.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.